I forced myself to down a truly awful coffee at Gatwick Airport, knowing that for the next 6 days I'll be treated to the best of the best. The destination is Catania, where my father grew up, and we're taking this pilgrimage to explore the east coast of Sicily. Our tour started along the coast by visiting two of the Aci Castello and Aci Trezza. Despite the number of buildings and busy roads, Aci Castello looks like a classic painting. The castle too is impressive. It is a lofty 13th century building that rises above the sea in splinters from a volcanic rock crag. It was the base of the rebel Roger di Lauria in 1297 and is remarkably well preserved, despite many volcanic explosions and the destruction wrought by Federico II of Aragon, who took the castle from Roger by erecting a wooden siege engine adjacent.
Luscio di paradiso non ne vidi, sciuri, sciuri, sciuri di tutto l'anno, l'amore che mi rasti di lontano, sciuri, sciuri, sciuri di tutto l'anno, l'amore che mi rasti di lontano.
Aci Trezza marks the beginning of the Riviera dei Ciclopi, named after the jagged points of the Scogli dei Ciclopi, which rise from the sea just beyond the town. Homer wrote that the blinded Polyphemus slung these rocks from Etna at Ulysses as he and his men escaped from the Cyclops on their ships. This is almost more believable than the truth, that these huge boulders were created by some of Etna's violent eruptions. I can't help feel that I'm finally on holiday. It's probably freezing back in London, but here the sun is strong and I can even refresh my feet in the water. After a poor night's sleep, because even my earplugs can't muffle the sound of my father snoring, I head towards another beast, Mount Etna. Like my father, it too rumbles through the night, no doubt much more quietly, at over 3,300 metres. Mount Etna, or Monte Bedru in Sicilian, looms over Catania quite beautifully. The higher we climb, the more the landscape changes, as all signs of life disappear under the layers of lava built up over centuries of eruptions. The funivia takes us high above the clouds, and a jeep completes the climb to 2,920 metres.
3.340 metri.
The contrast of snow and black lava is picturesque in itself, but the mix of cloud and steam filter the strong sunshine and create a unique environment, making it seem like a totally foreign planet. The sun is still strong, but the bitterly cold wind half makes me forget I'm a short distance away from a volcano crater. Fortunately, Mother Nature comes in handy when you're on a volcano, and all you have to do is jump up and down on the hot, steaming ground.
Invece sulla sinistra c'è la Bocca Nuova e il cratere centrale.
first stop today is to visit my grandfather's grave in Catania's main cemetery. The cemetery itself is beautiful, or it would be if they banned cars and motorbikes. You really could spend hours lost in the maze of graves, fantastically built. Some are huge, nearly as big as my home, and contain the remains of entire families. It was nearly 20 years ago when I last stood in front of his grave, and even though I never met him as he died in 1971, it still has a profound effect on me. I was named after him, and to see my name written on a gravestone is still as moving as it was when I saw it as a 10-year-old. Ciao, nonno. Siracusa is impressive, and I'm pleasantly surprised that even though it's more Greek and Roman ruins that I've previously seen in Agrigento, it's totally different and full of history. The interesting ruined base of the Ara di Ierone II, a 200-metre long altar erected in the 3rd century BC, is adjacent to the impressive Roman amphitheatre, one of the largest of its kind anywhere. We're told that the tank in the centre of the arena contained the blood and gore spilled during combats. Blood and liver from men and animals were used to feed the infirm and disabled, in the belief that this would speed their recovery. Ugh. The Teatro Greco is one of the biggest and best preserved Greek auditoriums. In its time, it could accommodate 15,000 people. Unfortunately, we found it being set up for the seasonal plays. They've essentially ruined the ruins. The terrace above the theatre contains the Nympheum, a large artificial grotto fed by water from an ancient aqueduct. And the Via dei Sepolcri, Street of the Tombs, deeply rutted by carts that plied to and fro. The Orecchio di Dionisio is an enormous cave around the corner from the amphitheatre. It's hugely impressive both visually and acoustically, and its shape, similar to an ear, makes for fantastic echoes. Supposedly, the tyrant Dionisio left his prisoners in the cave so he could listen to their secrets from afar. We're treated to something else, as we're lucky enough to enter at a time when a Dutch opera singer starts singing. The Isle of Ortigia is the touristy part of Siracusa. Here is the Fonte Aretusa, named after the nymph who rose after swimming across from the Peloponnese. The town is relatively quiet, especially along the narrow streets surrounding the beautiful Piazza del Duomo, which seems to have a million stories to tell. At the most southern point of the island is the Castelmaniace, a military base, normally closed to tourists. But, following a recent G8 summit, they've opened it specially. Today we head north and explore some of the lesser well-known sites, which is great as the lack of tourists means that it's like being a fly on the wall to Sicilian life. I paddle across a small river and arrive at Castelvecchio Sicuro, where we find the splendid Basilica Pietro e Paolo, a church of unique mixed Byzantine and Arab style, adorned with colourful bricks made of sandstone, chalkia and lava.
Questa è un'architettura unica al mondo, tu devi vedere le volte sopra, la bellezza di questi mattoni che vanno a riempire, a chiudere la volta di sopra. e poi queste colonne che sono originali del tempo.
Nearby is Forza d'Agro, a pleasant little town high on the mountains, which, despite the massive construction, still retains its village feel at the peak. Unfortunately, the castle at the top is closed. Fortunately, the views from the nearby Capo d'Alessio are splendid, along the coast and across the sea to Italy. There's even still time to visit the gole of the river Alcantara, which, bizarrely, isn't even in my guidebook. It's a fantastic place, a winding series of rapids carving away at the unique rock formations, which makes for some great pictures. You can even wade up the rapids, but since there's been a lot of rain in April, the current is too strong for that today. Taormina is one of Sicily's most popular destinations, but it's left a rather bitter taste in my mouth because I find it absolutely packed full of tourists, with the town transformed into nothing less than an outdoor shopping mall. With an effort, I ignore the crowd and try to concentrate on the other aspects, the unbroken line of old palazzi, the rich decorations of the typical Sicilian carts, the intimate piazzas, the rows of flower-filled balconies, the narrow alleys, the unobtrusive and attractive churches of San Giuseppe and San Agostino, the elegant decorations of the Hotel Timeo, where my father used to spend the first day of the new year, and the panoramic views of the sweeping coast and bays below. Even more interesting is the Teatro Greco. Its position offers dramatic views of the Ionio coast, Mount Etna, and Taormina itself. As it's still used for shows, the ancient seats have been replaced and covered with wooden and metallic benches, which ruins the possibility of imagining what it looked like over 1,000 years ago. Nevertheless, sitting in the amphitheatre and writing my journal in the sun, with the panoramic views surrounding, it's almost unbeatable. Further up the mountain is the smaller village of Castelmola. It's quieter than Taormina, and for this I prefer it. The castle at the top also gives fantastic views of Capo d'Alessio coast.
muri senza
Forza d'Agro,
di campani.
and of Taormina underneath. Back to the coast, we visit the Mazzarò Bay, where my father had his first swimming competition.
Sinnie no sinnie non li mehanni. Sinnie no sinnie.
And the beautiful beach at Isola Bella, which certainly lives up to its name. In fact, only at high tide does it actually become an island. Therefore, being low tide, we cross the isthmus and I jump around the shallow water at sunset.